Hey guys, Twigs here. So we're going to be checking out a video by HexJuice. She's a content creator who's been getting into the gacha game scene. I've seen her Genshin Impact video where she was going over her account, so I do know that she is very familiar with hoyoverse games. And lately, I've been watching her streams. She has been getting into Honkai Star Rail. From what I've seen, she's enjoying the gameplay. And now she's going to be covering a very interesting video called Honkai Star Rail Will Never Beat Genshin Impact. And as somebody who has been making videos for both games, I had to see what the hell she's talking about here. And I'm going to be very interested to give my take on this. So with that being said, check out HexJuice. Cool content creator. Definitely head over to her channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button for her. And while you're at it, hit the like button for me. It'll help get my video out there. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. It'll help us grow a community over here, help us grow the channel. So without further ado, let's get into HexJuice's video.
Obviously, we're familiar with the fact that Genshin broke the normie barrier, and that is part of why Genshin has always been so incredibly successful. Subscribe!
What the fuck? Alright, I did not see that coming. Alright, but yes, out of the gate, that is a very true statement. Genshin Impact broke the normie barrier. It got gacha games. Like, before Genshin Impact, people have heard of gacha games like Epic 7, Fate Grand Order, but it didn't... You would have to be, like, chronically a gacha gamer or chronically on the mobile app, whatever phone you use, Apple or Android, and see these gacha games on your phone. But Genshin Impact did 100% break the normie barrier. And part of that was that the fact that Genshin Impact was revolutionary for its time, being an open world gacha game that kind of took elements from, let's be honest here, Breath of the Wild. But it was what everyone wanted, an open world anime-esque game with good combat, good gameplay, interesting characters. And that's what drove people to Genshin Impact. Yes, COVID did help inflate the numbers because everyone was stuck at home. Everyone's just playing video games. Boom, anime open world game comes out and everyone's like, fuck yeah, I'll give it a shot. That's... Genshin Impact hit at the right time in the right market with normies and casuals being able to, because again, the biggest chunk of the mobile gaming market is the casual player, because everyone has a phone. And again, that was to Genshin Impact in hoyoverse's favor. So let's continue. Right now, she's on track. She's right on track.
Was kind of the sort of first of its kind to accomplish what it could. I think a lot of people who got into Genshin who had never played a gacha game before or had very little interest in gacha games, Genshin was kind of the first example of it being a gacha game being kind of like a full game. Like if we compare something like Genshin to games that existed at the time like Fate Go, the ratio of actual game in the game is much better in Genshin. And also Genshin was beautiful. The characters were very likable. It was easy to get into because it was mobile. There was a lot of really great stuff going on for Genshin, but then it was also COVID. And I think that
like-minded. So far she's hitting all the beats that I just said. Very like-minded.
The word of mouth on Genshin was what got it going, because I would not have gotten into Genshin if it hadn't been for a friend of mine telling me to get into Genshin.
For me, it was an MTash video. I think I've shared this in a previous video before. But me seeing an MTash video covering the game got me into it.
And realistically, the point that I want to get at as well is that part of, I think, why Genshin was so incredibly successful was specifically the content creators.
And I, again, can be an example of that. MTash giving the game the review that he felt it deserved at the time was what inspired me to want to play the game and get into it. And so, again, it was just a perfect storm for Genshin Impact. A revolutionary game for the gacha game market, being open world, anime-esque, great gameplay. At the time, a mid-story. But it was just, like she said, like Hex said here, it was a gacha game that felt like a AAA game. And the casual market jumped onto it because it was partially also a mobile game. COVID, everyone was stuck at home. Everyone was just looking for something to do. Bam, Genshin Impact hits. And just overall, with all this happening in an encapsulated moment in time, boom, word of mouth, to her point, everyone's just saying, hey, you gotta try this out. It's an open world anime game with pretty good gameplay.
Content creators got so hard into Genshin as soon as it was released. I had actually played Genshin very briefly right when it came out and then stopped because I didn't really get it, and then got back into it because I started watching Tectone and I thought he made the game look so fun that I decided to play it. And so I think that in a lot of ways, that's a lot of, I think, why hoyoverse has such a big hand in the content creation scene of its own game, because without content creators, I genuinely do not believe that so many people would have even tried Genshin, but they definitely, I don't think, would have stuck with it for for nearly as long, because a lot.
That's an interesting point, because if let's play around with her thought. If, let's say for me, Mtash didn't catch on to Genshin Impact, maybe I might have not, at the very least, got into Genshin Impact when I did. Maybe further down the road, I would have picked up Genshin Impact by other means, but who knows? And so that's, you're kind of where she is, touching on a what if scenario that, who knows? Again, if I didn't watch Mtash's video, who knows? Maybe I would have picked it up later down the road by someone else. I don't know.
A lot of people, I think, would have been turned away by the gacha aspect of it more quickly if it weren't for the fact that content creators were really good at making content for the game. I guess the point of this video is like why Honkai will never even possibly rival Genshin, but Genshin made gacha. Gacha games existed before Genshin, but the reason that anybody gives a shit about gacha games now, realistically, is Genshin and its creators. But the problem that I want to talk about
I would say Genshin made gacha games more popular, but I don't. You could say it revolutionized gacha games, but when you look at Genshin Impact's gacha system, at the time it was very, very, very predatorial due to the weapon banner at the time actually being the definition of a trap. Because, I mean, Tectone is proof of how much of a trap the weapon banner is due to the Staff of Homa incident. But also, the rates are not good. If I recall, you barely even have a % of a chance before 75 pulls deep into the event banner to get the 5-star. And we're talking like a % or two. Crazy ass odds. So when it comes to gacha, other games have a more generous gacha system compared to Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact, when it comes to gacha, actually kind of made it worse. But it did make gacha games more popular. So it did the gacha game market a favor by being a good game, but it hurt the gacha game market by having terrible rates. So it's kind of a give and take.
Specifically with Honkai ends up being that, first of all, it's turn-based. And second of all, not a lot of people are going to get into Honkai Star Rail without Genshin. Honkai is deeply dependent on Genshin Impact to gain a community. And I think where Genshin succeeds more on this aspect is that Genshin has more goofy shit. And so the turn-based aspect is not great. The Gacha aspect is harder to ignore because it's not Genshin and there's
Oh, okay, alright, I can agree to this to a point. I do agree that Honkai Star Rail definitely 100% is going deep into the Genshin Impact player base due to the familiarity. You have Genshin Impact, basically a brother-sister game to Honkai Star Rail. Of course, the audience, the player base is going to bleed into one another. And yes, to a degree, I understand that not everyone's going to be a big fan of turn-based combat. And I agree to this also to a fair point. Reason is because I come from as a player who's loved a lot of turn-based games. I've loved every Pokemon, well, just about every Pokemon game. I have played several Final Fantasy games. I have played several Fire Emblem games. I am basically the target audience for this game. So I can actually attest that I actually really do love the turn-based action to this game. So on one hand, I can see, because I do see that people are kind of iffy about turn-based games. Yes, obviously, action adventure games kind of lead more into that normie audience because you can just turn your brain off and play. Whereas turn-based games require more strategy, and therefore it can, if you're not a strategic player, a strategic thinker, or somebody who just at least likes to put thought into anything, I can see that a turn-based game could turn people off. So I'm seeing her points halfway.
there's not a pretty open world that looks like Legend of Zelda. How do you get people in? Because Genshin has a bunch of pulls. This game doesn't have pulls to get into this game, literally at all. And so my concern ultimately is that like Genshin gets people in by having a stunning and beautiful open world, by having memes that are actively, encouraged by the community, and by having content that realistically is more accessible to more people. There was not a lot that I had to learn about Genshin that took a lot of effort. Realistically, I needed to know the different combinations of elements. I needed to know what elements were weak to what other elements.
And honestly, the gameplay at first is just fun. I remember the first time I played Genshin, and I activated Lumine's tornado ability after I had used Amber's Baron Bunny, and therefore there was fire on the grass. I activated Lumine's tornado. Boom! I created a fire tornado. That's just kind of fun, and that kind of fun, oh damn, fun! This is cool, fire tornado, and that can really capture a normie audience of, oh, this looks fun, I can create fire tornadoes. So I can see how the open world, the immersive gameplay can attract a normie audience. So I think she's 100% right on this.
Which is pretty standard, especially if you're somebody who grew up playing Pokemon. That's not the craziest concept ever. There was not a lot of barriers to entry to Genshin. This game is significantly harder because there's no memes. There's not a lot of silly goofy content. I barely ever see anybody making Honkai Star Rail shorts. They don't perform well because nobody really makes them. And the entire community is so deeply and intrinsically based around sweaty algebra type content that it is slightly impossible to get into as a normal person. I have a community that essentially just spoon feeds me information. But the problem is that the guides at this point are built on so many layers of knowledge.
And it's true. In her streams, she completely supports, when she's playing this game specifically, backseat drivers. And that's the thing. And this kind of goes into the whole hoyoverse Genshin Impact community. The people that wanted hard gameplay out of Genshin Impact, they went to Honkai Star Rail. Because Honkai Star Rail is basically what the end game hopeful want Genshin Impact to have hard gameplay. Those players, they had to go to Honkai Star Rail to get that. Why do you think I'm playing Honkai Star Rail all the time? Why do you think Imtash is playing Honkai Star Rail all the time? Why do you think Tectone is playing Honkai Star Rail all the fucking time? Because this game is allowing us to finally use our brains, which is what we've been wanting this whole time out of Genshin Impact. It's the ability to finally use our brains.
That I feel like a lot of the time I have to go watch a guide to understand a guide. I don't know what speed tuning is. And I have to go into the deepest guides from like an entire year ago known to man. And the problem with a lot of those guides additionally ends up being that they're outdated. But you're not going to remake them as a guide maker because they're not going to do as well the second time because most people play the game from day one. The game would be benefited by encouraging this high sweat behavior less.
And she's right and wrong at the same time. So she is absolutely right that Honkai Star Rail could lean more into that casual normie audience by doing more things that Genshin Impact is doing. Whereas it would also, if Honkai Star Rail started doing that, it would also kind of hurt the charm that it has acquired. Because this is basically, Honkai Star Rail is that game where people who want actual good gameplay that actually is challenging for the players who've been wanting that out of Genshin Impact. And so that's where I'm saying she's right and wrong. She's right because it would be able to grab more into the casual normie audience. But it would also hurt it at the same time by turning off the player base that Honkai Star Rail has already pretty much immersed itself into. So it's literally a double-edged sword.
Centering all content and all streams and all videos around high sweat behavior less. Like a game that you literally cannot enjoy unless you already have been playing and you are already very, very, very good at, like, you already know what you're doing. As a new player, the community is sometimes very difficult. I'm gonna be honest, like, the community is very fucking annoying very regularly.
All right, so as a member of the community, I don't think that, honestly, granted, my part of the community is basically, and I find this a bit weird because Hex is pretty much in this part of the community too. I honestly, based on what I've seen, maybe I'm just seeing the content creator side from Gacha Smack, Mr. Pokey, Tectone, Imtash. Those guys are cool. And from what I see of their communities, everyone's cool. And every one of you guys that are probably watching right now that have talked to me and communicated with me about Honkai Star Rail have been always super cool. So I'm not really sure maybe who she's talking to. I don't know.
Like, not my community, but people come in like whack as fuck. The content creators make almost no silly, goofy content. Most of the content creation for Honkai Star Rail is guides, takes.
Okay. So, is she speaking more so about just goofy, silly stuff that you would see out of Genshin Impact?
Peer-to-win tier lists and occasional showcases or whatever fucking like meta beef bullshit. But there's not a lot of variety of content in the community. I think it is a problem because it means that your choice is to deeply enjoy sweat gameplay or quit. This game will eventually suffocate itself because it caters purely to very specific and relies on another bigger game. It rides Genshin Impact.
All right, so to a degree, I kind of see where she's coming from. Yes, it does cater to guide making, showcasing how good you got in your account. Obviously, when new story stuff comes out, kind of like showing the gameplay of your experience through whatever the story is at the time. But honestly, and this maybe just come from my personal opinion, all Genshin Impact content has just turned into, again, guide making for a character and then just nothing. Because I based on what I see, I see pretty much everyone's just gotten bored of Genshin Impact. I don't see really much content creating being done for Genshin Impact other than guides to how to build certain characters. And obviously when new story stuff comes out. And this may just be my personal opinion because I never was entertained by the goofy stuff of just like, hey, let's make a video of Amber posing behind an explosion or in front of an explosion. But this, again, I might be just speaking of me specifically, of not being entertained by that. But again, if we're talking about a casual normie audience, maybe.
Honkai is a Genshin Impact writer. And the reality is when we use that term correctly and not just at anything we don't like, the reality of a writer is that it doesn't have the value to bring in people on its own, and it purely takes from something else that is more successful.
Again, and I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I think Star Rail definitely did benefit from Genshin Impact's audience just because this is basically Genshin Impact in space, only make it a turn-based RPG. But I think the player base that Star Rail was going to grab or borrow from Genshin Impact has gotten it. Again, Star Rail caters to the players that want a challenge, that want actual gameplay that feeds into the desire to create cognitive thought. Whereas those players were not getting that from Genshin Impact. And so those players are going to go to Star Rail, and one or two things are going to happen. Those players are going to just stick strictly to playing Star Rail, or they're going to play both Genshin Impact and Star Rail. I think Star Rail has gotten the audience that it was going to get from Genshin Impact. Keep in mind, Star Rail did win Best Mobile Game of the Year award. So whatever it's doing right. And so yes, you could say it's dick riding by, when it came out, built itself off of Genshin Impact's back by diving into that player base. But whatever I think it's gotten out of that player base, it has gotten out of that player base.
I am trying to point out the fact that there is not diverse content in this community. I do not have a solution. I do not have to be responsible for every solution. Okay? I can have a perspective and have the viewpoint that there is an inherent issue in the community, that people expect a level of perfection from content creators and a level of sweat from content creators that is not fucking normal.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that. That take I don't agree with at all. And this may be again coming from my personal opinion. I don't think people expect perfection unless you let them know that you are trying to be perfection. So, for example, if I am an Omega Whale, we could kind of point to Mr. Pokey for this. But if I am going to be an Omega Whale, and I am going to whale out to C6 or E6, and then S5 all my Lycons, and do daily refreshes 24/7, and make sure all my relics are the best of the best, then of course my community is going to be like, motherfucker, I expect to see nothing but 0 cycles out of your ass. All right. But if I am making my content to just strictly cater toward people who are light spenders, which has always been my goal, to cater to light spender type players, then expect just average. To expect good, just around good. I am never going to let my community know that I am perfection. And that's the thing. That's my point. Again, if you're a free-to-play player, obviously you're playing by limited resources. So if you're a free-to-play content creator, obviously the free-to-play content creators community is going to know that this man is just going by the bare minimum of what he can get. And so that's what I'm getting at, is that I don't think the community expects perfection, because it all depends on what the content creator is trying to gear their content toward. So this take, I'm not vibing with it.
Additionally, the community fosters a relationship with the game that I think is unhealthy. Your account should not look like these content creators' account. There's
And again, I'm really not agreeing with this.
no reason that it should. A lot of those people have people who farm their accounts off stream so that they can just come on stream and do cool shit. You should not want an account like that. It is not a normal account to have, because somebody was trying to argue in the YouTube comments yesterday about Mr. Pokey that he's not a whale because he doesn't E6 every character.
And of course, we know Mr. Pokey is 100% a whale.
Max refreshing for relics is still whale behavior. You basically pay for more stamina so you can get more relics.
But the thing is that Mr. Pokey deliberately caters his audience to the best of the best situations. That's why Mr. Pokey always talks about 0 cycles. That's why Mr. Pokey is always literally doing max refreshes to get the best fucking relics ever.
Which means that effectively Mr. Pokey's account is like years ahead of most players with money. This is daily. People are...
And again, that's because Mr. Pokey's community are going to expect perfection. It all depends on who the content creator is. Again, if I was using myself, I am a light spender, therefore I am only going to try to achieve good enough.
Looking at content creators' accounts and going, yes, this is what I should have. No, it's not. But the point of creator accounts is that they're supposed to be like examples. You're not supposed to want an account like that. Time whaling is a thing too. Spending all of your time in a game like that is also not healthy.
I guess that would be kind of a free-to-play player. Like that just 100%. Like for example, Enviosity with Genshin. Enviosity is playing Genshin 24/7, but as a free-to-play player, he is just putting a lot of time into his account.
You can whale with your time and your money, but encouraging this high sweat, high tier accounts, like that's the norm, because I know that people do that because people come into my chat and bitch about my account, which is not even like to the point where I should or could be doing that stuff.
And again, I wouldn't even advocate for that. I would, like, to her defense, anybody who is just going to be going into somebody's chat or comments and just saying, hey, why isn't your shit, why don't you have like 10 crit rate and 20 something crit damage in your relics, like every one of your fucking relics for your main DPS. That you're being ludicrous and you set your expectations way too high because you've been watching too many Mr. Pokey videos and too many Mr. Pokey streams.
I literally cannot speed tune my shit because I don't have any relics. I have no relics.
And again, she's a new player for Honkai Star Rail, so her stuff is going to be nowhere near like an account like Mr. Pokey's or even an account like mine or Gacha Smacks or Imtash's.
How am I supposed to speed tune some shit when the speed is completely random? I don't even have enough characters. But people will come in instantly, just bitch about my speed. I'm doing vibe checks for fun, and people instantly, oh, they're missing 3 speed. This character is shit. This build is shit. That's abnormal, unfun, and honestly very unlikable behavior.
And again, if on this particular instance, I agree with her 100%. People should be, when they're watching content creators, they should be setting their expectations based on where the content creator is at the time. Anyone who's doing that has lost contact with reality. You should not 100% be doing that at all. You should be seeing this girl playing this game, see that she has only like 2 level 80 characters and not probably very much else. She's saying she has no relics because she doesn't have enough stamina at the time to even farm relics. She's trying to get for the fucking story. She's not even finished with the story yet. Of course. Check yourself, bro. See where... Look at what you're looking at and be like, is this person even at the point where they should be just farming relics? No, remember, when you're starting off Star Rail, focus more on traces over relics. Goodness.
And I'm gonna be real, I am cool with it because most of my community, most of y'all are fucking fantastic to be around. But when all of these people are constantly coming into stream just to bitch and nitpick and nag, if I was a smaller streamer with less cool viewers, I would not continue to play this game. Getting people into this game is one of the most important things you can do here. Why would I start farming relics before my characters are leveled? It's stupid. It makes no sense to do that. The fact that that is a norm that people think should be encouraged, it is a negative for the community. When people come in, we need to encourage them to stay. I've talked about this before. There are communities on Twitch that are extremely niche. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel does this a little bit. There are communities that basically love bomb new streamers coming in because these communities understand that you need new players to come in to keep your community alive. This community is deeply, deeply gatekept. And
again, I keep going back and forth with her on this this take because again, I feel like Star Rail's community is in a decent place. Yes, are there those assholes that she's talking about that come in and just hyper focus on certain things and don't realize that we're watching a new player start their new account? Yes, and I would straight up call those people idiots. But on the same token, I feel like this community has been super welcoming. I honestly think Star Rail's community is so much more better than Genshin Impact's community. So much more better. You can even go watch Tectone talk about the Star Rail community. The Star Rail community is fantastic and is 10 times better than the Genshin Impact community. So on this, again, I'm flip-flopping back and forth on her.
yes, some people get past that. Some people do get past that. And honestly, I do recommend this game to new streamers. But you also have to be willing to tell people to f themselves in a lot of situations or just
I would agree to that.
on because people are fucking so weird. I had people, I would be asking questions and people would be like, hey, are you actually asking or are you going to be mad at me for backseating if I answer? That was how I experienced that community where I'm like, where the f do I go? What do I do? What do I do? Where the f do I go? And they're like, hey, are you actually asking or are you kind of saying that rhetorically and you don't want me to answer because I don't want to backseat you if you don't want it? That is the appropriate reaction to backseating. coming
100%. I agree with that. I would, if I were in her shoes, I'd have been like, hey, feel free, let me know. I'm new here. I'm lost. Give me the advice that I need. And that is good backseating. And again, to her defense, anyone who is coming in and is trying to be hypercritical, hyper focused on things that a new player would not be ready for, and you were going to go ahead and shit on them about it, you're crazy and you're an idiot.
in as a first-time chatter to a streamer you've never met before and being like, hey, it looks like your stats suck fucking balls is bad etiquette. And it's
Yes,
bad
that
for
is.
the
I'll agree.
community as a whole, because I know people are, oh, well, who gives a fuck about how streamers are treated? But you have to remember, content creators are a huge driver specifically for hoyoverse games.
And that goes for any game. Any game, literally, can be super benefited by content creators / streamers, because that's part of word of mouth. By me making this video about Star Rail, I am, by
Making this video, word of mouth, saying, hey bro, check out this game, it's great as fuck.
But if we're not fostering people to join, this community eventually is just going to devolve into further and further toxicity and not bring in new blood very often. And it's not great. We cannot turn people away on Twitch, especially. I think that you guys don't understand, like, the amount that this game is supported by its Twitch community is unusual. And so if your Twitch community turns people away by having a weird elitist attitude, eventually the game is going to die. I think a lot of you guys don't like it when people are elitist like that.
people who are being toxic elitist, 100% are just assholes and dicks. And this is where I'm kind of going back and forth with agreeing with her. Because there are going to be those people. There, in literally every gaming community, it doesn't matter what the game is, there are going to be toxic assholes, and that's just, unfortunately, part of life. Like, literally in life, there are always going to be dickheads. And those people are always shunned and should be shunned within the communities that they're in. If you're being a toxic asshole, fuck you, go away. But again, I will say this in comparison. From what I have perceived, from what I have experienced, Star Rail's community has been super welcoming and is super cool. And again, from my perception, way better than Genshin Impact's community. Because, and I'll just kind of state this, and I'm just going to walk away. Genshin Impact players are blinded by their devotion to the game. Whereas Star Rail players, for the most part, have been cool. Super cool.
You guys see my frustration as well. So even people who really like the game and are really committed to the game don't love that attitude. So you're like, eventually, like, the more that we encourage that and the more that we make excuses for that behavior, the more we are fucking the community in the future. I want this game to be successful very badly. I like this game. But it's not even so much that I think that this is going to be a now problem. I think that this is a problem of this, like, elitist attitude that will continuously become more and more of a negative cycle for the community over time until the whole fucking thing suffocates. The point of the video is I want this community to succeed. I think there's a weird elitist part of this community that prevents people from getting in who do not already have a native interest in hoyoverse and gacha games. I want this community to succeed. I think that we should have more for fun allowances. I don't think that we should continue to allow people to come in sideways to people's streams and just be weird as f. That's the end. Goodbye, YouTube. Come to Twitch. It's fun here. It's fun, I swear, except for sometimes when people are dumb, but we're just gonna ignore them now.
But again, I am going to just kind of, in conclusion, say that I am glad that she is enjoying this game so far. I've watched a handful of her streams. She is a great streamer, great content creator, great attitude, and I can get behind this whole take for the most part 100%. Everyone should enjoy playing a game. That is the point of playing video games, is to have fun, to enjoy them. And to a degree, elitist people who are assholes, dickheads, again, they're not fun. If you're being toxic about it, shun those people. Nobody likes toxic elitist dickheads. But this game does cater to a player who wants a challenge, who wants to be, who basically views challenging gameplay as fun. Besides the fact that it's an anime-esque turn-based space adventure game. And that's where basically
Star Rail dives into Genshin's player base. But that's pretty much it. And I'll repeat this again. The people from Genshin Impact's player base are the players that wanted a challenge, are the players that wanted challenging gameplay from Genshin Impact, are not getting it, are going to Star Rail to receive it because that's what they wanted. And I can see where that player who wants a challenge kind of turns into an elitist, and that's where you're going to get either the elitist who's a dickhead, who we do not like, or the elitist who is basically humble about it. For me personally, I just like a challenge. I like to be cool. That's why I will be 100% supportive of her point of view, which is shun elitist dickheads. And I'm coming from the mentality of coming from the Genshin Impact community, where I look at the Genshin Impact community, I look at the Star Rail community, and it's just night and day. Star Rail's community is so much more pleasant to be around versus the Genshin Impact community that's so full of toxic positivity. And I would rather be in a community where Star Rail's that loves constructive criticism and loves that the game dives into self-improvement versus a community that wants to sit in a room that's completely on fire and just say everything's fine. So overall, I do 100%, for the most part, agree with. I can't say 100%. For the most part, I agree with her take. And actually, I think this is a good conversation. I think this is a good conversation starter moment. And honestly, a great video. So definitely check out HexJuice. Great content creator. I enjoy watching her streams. I enjoy watching her videos. Definitely hit that like button for her. I will link the video in the description below, so definitely hit that link and check out her channel and stuff. And while you're at it, hit that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button for me. It helps us grow a community over here. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.